Hi everyone, it's Fiona here from fionamarks.com, and today I'm going to share with you the house analysis tables that I've put together. This was something that came out of my research for the first paper in the final year. It's a very personalized tool. I don't know that it applies to anybody else but me, but some of you guys have been asking about it when you see the videos and you see me using it. So I'm going to run through now how to fill it out and input the data, and then you guys can see whether it's helpful or not helpful. So let's share the screen. Okay, so here we have the house analysis tables that I put together in Excel, a spreadsheet. This is available on the shop if you want to go and buy it, but perhaps work through this with me and see whether it's something that you actually think would be useful for you, because maybe it says more about the way that I think than anything else. And really, I found great value in these 10,000 word papers that we did, that you guys have seen on my blog. I have the Meghan paper, which was my second paper, and I have the Prince Harry paper, which was the third paper. And I found these really useful processes to think through and to thoroughly take the time to look for those repeated indicators for that coherence throughout the chart. I really learned a lot. So I highly recommend it. And in the process of doing that, this is the kind of analysis that I was doing to hold it all in my head at the same time. So this spreadsheet came from the first paper, which I didn't publish because it was a private citizen, someone that I knew, and I also got a lot of benefit from actually researching someone that I could interview and talk it through. But in the process of researching that paper and writing it came this idea for analyzing the charts. So let's have a look at this spreadsheet. You can see at the bottom that actually this spreadsheet is a workbook and has lots of different tabs. So if you follow me right down to the bottom, you can see at the moment we're on the first house, but there's a tab for the second house, the third house, the fourth house, etc. Right? So you get the idea that every house I'm asking the same questions. After we've gone through all the 12 houses, there's a tab where all of that information will be automatically collated here. So you don't have to do anything on this page. So just relax. I know it looks a bit busy. And then after the summary page, there is a all planets tab with all the information about all the planets. And then there's one about all the signs. Okay, so that's the general layout of the spreadsheet, is these tabs at the bottom. They drive the spreadsheet. Now, if you were to buy this from my shop, you also get the instruction manual, right? How to use it. Because like I said, it probably reflects more about my thinking than anything else. But you can see here that we'll go through looking at the layout of each of the tabs, just like I've done with you. And then we're going to go through in the instruction manual how to answer these questions about the planets, the signs, and the houses, and then how to interpret the data. So I'll just scroll through a little bit so you can see that we have an explanation of the layout, and then the data input. We've got quite detailed what to do with each category. Okay, so that's something that if you were to go through and use it, you do get that kind of support. But here we're doing it live on the video. So when you first open your spreadsheet, it will be here on the first house tab. And the very first thing that you really have to do is save as. And let's put it into SA3, you guys know. And let's put this as okay, this is Prince Harry for the video. Okay, now why that is important is because now I can play with this spreadsheet and personalize it to Prince Harry, and I've still got a blank one left over. So you always want to have a blank one for the next chart that you're going to read. So save as is the very important first step. Then the next step is actually, instead of going straight to fill out the houses, you need to come along all the way over to the All Planets tab. Now, I will just point out for people that haven't used Excel before or haven't used it a lot, this little sliding bar covers up the tabs. Being as there are so many tabs, you might want to move your bar far to the right so that you can see all of the tabs. So in terms of inputting data, the very first thing that we want to do is go and fill out all the information for each planet. And that will all make sense. Okay, in order to do that, we want to go look at the chart. So let's share. Oops, nope, that's no good. Let's move this to the side. And then let's share it with this one. Okay, so now you've got Prince Harry's chart that you recognize that we already went through in the other video. And then you have your beginning to input your data. So the very first thing you want to do is come along and we're going to do the sun first. So you'll notice that the first question that we get asked is actually grey, and the grayed out boxes are not relevant to this particular data input, so we don't put anything. However, having said that, if you do have this spreadsheet and you do think that planets are passive or active, you should feel free to put in whatever you want there. Okay, so the second question asks about Ayana Bala. Now, the way this spreadsheet works is basically if you think the indicator is present, you put a 1. If you think the indicator is not present, you put a 0. The only exceptions to that is that sometimes it's going to ask you questions like, is the planet with benefics or is it with malefics? And for that, you can put whatever number is relevant. So if it's with 2 benefics, you put 2. If it's with none, you put 0. Let's work through all of that together. Okay, now, first question, Ayana Bala. So here we are with the sun. We come down here to Ayana Bala, and the sun in this chart has 112% Ayana Bala. So I would say that for me, I would consider to be 1. That is that the indicator is present. That is a judgment call. So I'm calling definitely anything over 100%. I feel like that's a 1. You yourself, and when I do it, I think I kind of feel like if it's over 75% or 80%, I'm calling that 1. But you might be strict and say it has to be 100, and that's what 1 means to me. And if it's less than 100, I'm going to put 0 there. So it's very much you set the bar about what you think is sufficient, Ayana Bala or any of the other indicators. Okay, then we come along here to the next box, and it's lilac or purple. All of the lilac boxes have been pre-filled by me. I would like you, when you use this, if you decide to use it, that you just check those and see whether you agree or disagree, and feel free to change them. So for the doshas of the planets, I have gone through and I've already allocated which ones I think are, in this case, Kaphic. Okay, so you can agree, disagree. You could change that if you wanted to. Coming along to the next question, it asks for Baladia, is it young or adult? And you'll notice it has an asterisk on it, and you'll also notice that it's green. Anything with an asterisk or this, in this case, green, in a minute it'll be orange, relate to the calculation of prosperity and annihilation. So we come over to our chart and we have a look at the sun and we can see, yes, it's Kumara. So we are going to put 1 for that because, yep, it is young. Now, we are asking the next question, is this planet benefic? I have pre-filled these for you. Again, feel free to disagree. You can change them any way you like. Next question, is it conjunct a benefic? So let's have a look at the sun in the chart. This is for the calculation of prosperity and annihilation. My reading in this case is that when we are present with Mercury, however, when Mercury is with the sun, it's malefic. So I'm going to put 0 as my response to being conjunct with benefic. Next question, does it have Digbala? So exactly the same, you have to make the judgment call. Luckily for us, 125% over 100. I'm going to put that in as 1. Then I like to have a quick rundown here on the Vargas and say, is it good in the Vargas? This gives me just a sense of how strongly resonating it is. We've got that it's enemy in the Rashi, but what else is going on? I don't see anything particularly amazing, in those major players of the Vargas. So I would put 0 there. You'll notice we're coming up to 2 lilac boxes. The element is at water and the guna is at sattva. I have pre-filled those. Feel free to disagree. You can change them if you want to. Then which house Lord is it and where is it? So you might just want to have a look at whether any of those relate to 1, 4, 5, 9. So this is the 8th Lord in the 9th house. So I'm going to give it a 1 here because it's in the 9th house. So it's getting some of that graceful energy. But you could disagree with me and say, but as a house Lord, it's ruling 8. So I'm going to cut that out. But I'm going to say it's associated with 9. That's graceful. Now we're going back to a green question relating to prosperity annihilation. Is the planet Jagrat? And we notice that nope, it's Fabna. So we're going to put in 0 for that. And then is this sun proud or delighted? And you can say, now this is up to you how you rule it. The sun is not proud because it's not in its exaltation sign, but it is being delighted by the moon, by Mars, and by Jupiter. So you might like to say they're 3, or you might say, well, Mars is not giving very much, so I'm going to say 2. Up to you, because you're the person who will interpret the meaning of this. So you set your bar. I'm going to say 3 because we're getting delight from 3 different planets there. Okay, next question, is it aspected or associated with a manifesting planet? And we definitely know that it's going to be at least 1 because it's with Mercury, which is a manifesting planet. And then we just check the Rashi aspect, but no, it's not getting a Rashi aspect from Jupiter. So we can just say that, yep, 1. It's getting Rashi aspects from 1. From Mercury, exactly. Then the next question is lilac, and I've pre-filled it for you, whether it's moist or not. The dignity. Here, you get to answer what you think is sufficiently well performing. For me, this is in enemy dignity, so I would say dignity is not present. And next is a green question relating to prosperity annihilation. House Lord in the 10th or an angle or a trine. Yes, I'm going to say yes to that because it's in the 9th. And then coming across here, is it involved in a Raja Yoga? It's the 8th Lord in the 9th house. So I'm going to give that a at the moment. Chestabala, here we get to read another. This is our judgment call. Okay, so this is, I'll leave this with you guys. 67%. Is that enough, Chestabala? I'm going to call that not. So I'm going to say not present. It's 0. And Drikbala down here, looking good. Nothing really happening there. So I would say yes, we're getting some support with not having anything being taken away from us there. And the yoga score. Now you can't see that because let's just maximize and minimize again. It's got 3.3 of good. Oops. So you also have to decide what you think is a good yoga score, but at least that's producing something. I'm going to give that a 1. Okay, now the only thing that I would just going to go and go back and change here based on what we've talked about is, remember that I said that it was 1, 4, 5, or 9. I'm going to change that to a 0 because actually I got to tell it that the house lord is in a trine. So I'm happy with that now. Okay, and now all of these factors I've put together in categories that I call E's. If you want to see my reasoning for that, that's all in the instruction manual. This is extremely personal. You might disagree with me, but I wanted to, when I was looking at the house and writing my essay, I wanted to look at what indicators were making things a little bit easier. So you notice here I've got all the moisture, the water element, the kapha, those trinal numbers, being a benefic. Those are the things that have made it, in my opinion, make it easier. You might disagree. Okay, the next little subcategory that we have is activated. So coming up, we've got a question that is not relevant. It's in gray. Then we've got a dosha question in lilac, which you can change if you disagree with my pre-filling. We're asking here about Baladyavashta, is it baby? And it's not. So we're going to put 0. With element, is it ether or air? I've pre-filled that for you. Guna, is it rajasic? I pre-filled that for you as well. And is it in the first house, 7th or 10th? Is it the lord of the first, 7th or 10th? And in this case, it is not. So that's a 0. Okay, so not a lot of activated indicators for that sun, the 8th lord in the 9th house. And then we are moving now into the subcategory that I call discomfort. And a lot of these become pre-filled because of what we've already responded to. So you'll notice that Ayana Bala is pre-filled based on whatever we said in the first question. The dosha is pre-filled based on my choice about whether I think it's pitta or not. The Baladyavashta is pre-filled because we've already answered whether it was young, adult, or baby. So from that, we can know whether it's old or dead. And malefic, I pre-filled for you. So the first thing then that you want to ask is it combust? Luckily, in this case, sun can't be combust, so that was pretty easy. Is it conjunct a malefic? Yes, it is, because Mercury is acting as a malefic. Then the Digbala is pre-filled based on your previous response. So is the Vaga based on your previous response. The element I pre-filled, so feel free to change it. The Guna I also pre-filled for you. The house class. This is if it's already worked it out based on what you already responded. So it's correct here because yes, in fact, the sun is in the 8th house. So yes, we've got a 1 there already. But the Jagradati Advashta we need to ask, because for prosperity and annihilation calculation, it asks, is it Jagrat? And it asks, is it Shushupti, asleep? But it doesn't ask Svapna. So this is why you have to answer each time, because I can't eliminate one. So is it Shushupti? No, it is not. So we can put 0 for that. Is it being agitated, shamed, starved, or thirsted? So this is where we got the chance to say it was being delighted, and we put 3. Is there any red here? Is it being damaged by anyone by Lajatati Avashtas? In this case, no. So we can put 0 for that. And then is question 20, house lord with a malefic planet or an inauspicious lord? So yes, it is with a malefic planet. And is it a malefic lord as well? Mercury is ruling the 6th and the 9th. So we're going to say that actually for this you can get 2, because you're with a malefic and you're also with an inauspicious lord. And then Chestabala and Drikbala are pre-filled based on what you responded to the first part of the row. Udabala, you have to go have a look. In this case, it's not present. And finally, in the yoga score negative, you get to check. And remember, I think this was 8.4. So I'm definitely putting this in as that it has negative. It has positive and it has negative. Okay, so now we have filled all of this in for the sun. We need to go back and do this for all planets. And you can see the numbers as they're coming up. You can yourself go and analyze, wow, there were 11 answers to the 20 questions about ease. So it's about half of it easy. There was nothing in the activation for the sun. And in the more discomfort, there were 12 answers to that out of 20 questions. So a little bit more discomfort than ease, but pretty close. Okay, now we're going to go through and do each of these planets. So I might just pause you so that you don't have to hear all of that, and I'll see you back when it's all filled in. So now you can see we have filled in all the data relating to all the planets. Let me just scroll over so you can see that. Yep. So we went through, we answered all the questions. Begins the whole thing about this spreadsheet is the process of filling it in begins to enrich your picture of what's really going on in the chart. Okay, so having filled in the all planets, the next thing that we need to do is go and have a look at all the signs. So you want to scroll along to your tab for all the signs. Now in this tab, I have pre-filled all of the data. You need to go check whether you agree or not. So I've talked about whether it's active or passive, what dosha it is, what element it is, what guna it is. I've made those decisions. Some of them are a little bit controversial. You might agree or disagree and just change them. So you need to examine the purple. However, if you agree, then there's actually nothing for you to do. All right, now we filled in all the planets, we filled in all the signs. It's time to start building our house by house. So let's come along now to the first house and begin to fill this in. Now we're answering questions about the first house. So beginning at this A3, house equals first. Once again, gray questions, don't have to answer them. Passive, Ayanabala, dosha, baladi, benefic. All we have to answer is it conjunct benefic? Let's go have a look at that first house. Here we find Jupiter on the first house. So that is correct. I'm going to put a 1 in there. Then I don't have to answer any of these gray questions. I have pre-filled for you the house class. You can disagree as always because it's in purple. Feel free to replace it. Another couple of gray boxes. And then we want to answer the question, is it aspected by or associated with a manifesting planet? In this case, we already know we've got Jupiter there, so that's 1. Now, what about Mercury? Is there any way Mercury can give Rashi aspect from here? Nope. So our answer to that question is 1. Now, you will remember we answered this question also when we were looking at the planets. In terms of calculating the prosperity and annihilation, it uses this house row as the answer for that. So really that planetary question in a way is not relevant. But in another way, I think it does speak to how supported that planet feels. So I've left it in there. Entirely up to you whether you want to keep it or not. Couple of gray boxes, and then we've asked the question, does the house receive benefic Rashi aspect? So here we are, it is the active sign of Capricorn. We're going to go look at all of the fixed, and we notice that we are getting Rashi aspects here from Rahu and the moon, but that doesn't help us because they're both malefic in this chart. Nothing in Leo, and look at this. No, unfortunately not Libra. It's coming from Scorpio, Saturn and K2. So this is no benefic Rashi aspects. There we go. And then House Lord aspecting his own house. So Capricorn owned by Saturn. Saturn is providing Rashi aspects. So that is a nice, happy 1. Okay, continuing on for the first house, I have pre-filled here for you some data. You need to check it. And then, is it conjunct a malefic? For that, we can answer no. That's a 0. It's not conjunct a malefic. The house class I've answered for you. But is it getting malefic Rashi aspect? And you remember we just counted them 1, 2 from here and another 2 from here for a total of 4 malefic Rashi aspects. And I have pre-filled based on your answer that the house lord not aspecting its own house. I have also pre-filled whether it's an Arthur or a Moksha house for you. And that ends the data input for the first house row. So we're all good for the first house. Now, for the sign, we need to go say what sign is taking place in the first house. It's Capricorn. So then come along here to your all signs. Come along to the Capricorn row, right click and say copy. Then all the way back to the first house. Input, just highlight that 4th row, right click and put paste. Bang. Now all of that about Capricorn, whether it's dry or wet or whether it's pitta or ether, whatever, it's all been inputted into this first house. Now we want to know about the house lord. So who is the house lord of the first house? It's Saturn. So you go along to your all planets tab. You pick up Saturn. So here, right click, copy, and then back to the first house. And then Control V, or you can right click for paste. So now everything that we know about Saturn has just been added into this house. So we're getting more feeling now about these repeated indicators. But there's even more that we can find out. The next row is the planets in the house. So here you have to ask, is there a planet in the house? In this case, there's Jupiter. So we scroll on along to all planets and we go pick up Jupiter. Right click, copy. Back to the first house. And then we highlight the row and Control V or paste. The only thing you need to do for yourself is just change this back to planet in the house because it doesn't know whether you're the house lord or the planet in the house. But you can see it's brought over all of that data. Now, the final thing we have to input is the ascendant yogas and the bhava yogas. So the ascendant yoga for the first house, in this case, Capricorn ascendant, is 1st and 2nd. Okay. And I'm going to do these both together. I'm sure you can follow along with me. The next one is the bhava yoga. So where has this first lord gone? It's gone to Scorpio, the 11th house. So the bhava yoga is 1 and 11. Now, let's answer these questions together. Is there anything in the ascendant yoga that has 1, 4, 5, or 9? Yes, one of those numbers has that. And is there anything in the bhava yoga that has 1, 4, 5, or 9? Yes, 1. Okay, let's move along. Is there anything in the ascendant yoga that has 1, 7, or 10? Yes. Is there anything in the bhava yoga that has 1, 7, or 10? Yes. Okay, looking good. And then finally, we get asked about the ascendant yoga, which is 1 and 2, remember? Is there a difficult 2, 3, 6, 8, 11, or 12? Yes, there is. So we're just going to put yes for that. And it's exactly the same for the bhava yoga. There's also, because the 11th lord, it involves the 11th house. Okay, now we have completed inputting all the data for the first house. So you can see how it takes a little while to add in that planetary data, but then once we do it, it's now available for us to pull and paste into each particular house. When you finish inputting the data, as we just have for the first house, you can now zoom out and just begin to look at what is getting repeated indicators. And that is shown by the total here. So you can begin to see that there's a couple of indicators there for kapha. There's a couple of indicators for digbala, so this is good There's a couple of indicators for this resonating house class, which we know it's the first house. Of course, it's going to have the good sense for the person. This is really what their life path is all about. We've got some good Largitatia support. We're getting some aspects from manifesting planets. And Drikbala is also going well. So it adds those up. But you can see that across the board here. So you're the one doing the analysis. Like you might notice that in this one, this is the Largitatia Vashta is about being thirsted and shamed and starved. We're getting 5 indicators for that. So quite a lot of damage across the board there. We're getting a lot of malefic Rashi aspects. Yep. And that's what begins to show us where there's coherence and not coherence. The other thing is that right at the very bottom, it's adding up for us the prosperity and annihilation. So it's taking everything that we've input and the ones that are relevant to prosperity and annihilation, it's added here and calculated for us that there are 4 indicators for prosperity. And then all the way over here, same thing, it's giving us 6 indicators for annihilation. And you can see each of those, the reasons why. Anybody who's interested in spreadsheets and these little triangles warnings are telling us that this formula is inconsistent with the formula next to it, but that is absolutely correct, because when you think about prosperity and annihilation, some of the aspects that or indicators that are important relate to the house, and some of them relate to the house lord. So when on the spreadsheet, some things are coming from the house row and some things are coming from the house lord row. And Excel is saying, oh, you're picking things from different rows. Are you sure? And yes, we are, because Brihat Parashara tells us that it's a matrix. Okay, I'm going to pause for you guys again, go fill in the other 12, and then you can just see what the summary is like overall. Okay, so we're back having filled in each of the tabs relating to each of the houses. And I just wanted to demonstrate a few nuances of each different situation. So the first thing is that there will be, especially in Prince Harry's chart, many houses where there is not a planet in the house. And for all of those, you can just feel free to highlight that row, right click and delete. So you notice that therefore then in terms of the second house, we just know that it's a second house, it's in Aquarius, who the house lord is, and what yogas the house lord is involved in. Okay, and that for Prince Harry's house, a lot of the houses only have the house lord, right? But when we do have planets in the house, I've saved one here for you. The 9th house, for example, we have the 9th house taking place in Virgo with the house lord being Mercury. Now we actually have in the house, in that sign, 2 planets of Mercury and the Sun. I would personally include them both, even though I know you've already got Mercury as the house lord. But for me, it's when the house lord is in its own house that you see that repeated pattern. You know, it's emphasizing again the same indicators. So in this case, then we go over to our All Planets tab and let's go pick up Mercury first. Control copy, Control C. And that was the 9th house. All right, and we put it in here. You can just go Control V. And then you just need to remember to say planet in the house, because it's not smart enough to know that. But there's actually another planet in the house. So then we just right click, insert. Then got a whole nother row, and off you go over to the planets again. And in this case, it's the sun. So highlight the row, Control copy, Control C, and into the 9th house, highlight the row and Control V. So there you are. If you want to put multiple planets in, you just insert the line. Now, we've done all of these houses. So for any house that you want to know about, you can now look at what are the repeating factors. You can begin to see here what numbers are coming up more often. And you can also have a look at these percentages and see what is maybe a little bit out of the ordinary. What is something strong about this house? And of course, at the bottom, you have the prosperity and annihilation for each house. So this is what is really going to help you see the repeated patterns in the chart. And it begins to help me find the meaning in the chart. I begin to see the patterns that are saying, why has this chart been set up this way? However, if you are a very numbers person, just because Excel can do it, I have collated all of the totals here into one summary screen. So this takes, let's have a look at the screen you're familiar with. It takes this row here, the 9th row, the total row, and it takes the prosperity and annihilation row as well. So if we come to the summary, you can see that here, every single house, all of the totals have been added up here. And if it means anything to you, you can begin to say, wow, in terms of those ease questions, wow, maybe this house is the one with the most ease, the house of the partner. And you can say the same about the activation house. Whoa, this house here. The 10th house, the most activated house in the chart. And you could also have a look here and see what appears to be the most difficult. There are a few contenders there. I don't know, off the top of my head, the ninth house, of this person's life purpose, which Prince Harry, if you read the blog, you will notice that we talked a lot about him finding his own purpose as being quite challenging. And then it also has each house prosperity and annihilation added up here in case that's important to you. And just at the end of that, I have added whether overall that is a plus or minus. So which houses are the most prosperous? The 5th house, I believe. Let's have a look. Yep. And which houses are the least prosperous? And here we've got the 12th house. So you may find these numbers really useful. Or not. It's just because Excel does it that I've put it together. So it's there if it makes sense to you. But I think what I personally find about using this tool is that it is the process of going through it that really keeps my attention on the detail of the nuances of the planetary placements and the house placements and the sign placements. And it's from bringing my attention to that and holding it there that I can draw the important coherent elements out and the meaning from the chart. So if you think that it will help you concentrate on a chart and record your analysis, then you might like a tool like this. Certainly each sheet individually, when I'm writing my essay or when I'm analyzing someone's chart, I can come in and look at what's really going on in the 8th house and begin to look at those factors. So for me, it's the tab by tab for each house that's more useful. For you, if you're very numbers, maybe the summary works better. Okay, I hope that you have found that helpful and that it's given you an idea of how to use my house analysis table spreadsheet. And I look forward to seeing you in our videos about the Harry blog. So you can see all of those numbers. How do you turn it into a meaningful interpretation? Okay, see you in the next videos.